Hey, guess what, everyone? Joseph Quested here again. Welcome to the final video workshop session of the Inspiral Dev Academy Foundations program. Congratulations on making it this far. Let's jump right in, everyone. Let's do it. So here, what we're looking at is this video is going to be kind of split in two halves. So the first half is going to be we're going to go to the kata exercises from last week. So the Sprint 4 kata exercises, and we're going to check out this Super Fizz Buzz exercise. So this is like one of the harder kind of like functional programming related challenges from last week. We're going to dive into this stuff and we're going to write this challenge. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at here, maybe I'll open that in another tab, keep that off to the side. So here, if we go back to Sprint 5, which is the one that you're going to be working on this week, has a few different challenges in it, and this is the one that we're going to have a little look at here is the minesweeper challenge. So this is a challenge where you make a minesweeper game, and we're not going to do the whole thing because obviously that would sort of defeat the purpose of you wanting to do it, but we're going to go into it a little bit and just sort of like check out some of the way that it's structured, and kind of like see the way that that's all going to come together. But let's look at this one first, the Fizz Buzz Super Edition. So we click this here. Fizz Buzz is basically this challenge that is like a pretty common programming challenge. And the way that it works is like you're going to write a function, and what the function does, you might have even done it, I don't even know, maybe you did it in the one before this, I'm not sure. But basically what Fizz Buzz does is it can take a number, and then it returns you either the number, or fizz, or buzz, or fizz buzz, depending on some conditions. So I think that it kind of goes over it here. Yeah, here we go. It says multiples of 3 should be replaced with the string fizz, multiples of 5 should be replaced with the string buzz, and multiples of 15 should be replaced with the string fizz buzz. So that's what we're going to do. And there's this kind of like thing in programming called the modulo, or I'm not really exactly sure how you pronounce it, but it's kind of like this little tool that you can use in programming to check the remainders of an equation, and it is exactly what you want to use if you're doing a Fizz Buzz challenge like this. So before we write the Super Fizz Buzz, thing that is able to pass all of these tests, first we need to actually write Fizz Buzz itself. So let's do that now. Function Fizz Buzz, and Fizz Buzz is going to take a number, and then here, so this is where we're going to want to do the stuff. So we're going to have like some if statements here. If what would it be? If the number is a multiple of both, maybe that's even deserves capitals, both 3 and 5, return Fizz Buzz. So this is pseudocoding. That's what we're doing here now. So we're writing out just kind of like what we want the function to do in human readable code, and then we're going to write the actual programming code bit of it later on. This is a little bit too big. Here we go. And if the number is a multiple of, what would you say, 3, return fizz, and if it's a multiple of 5, return buzz, otherwise return the number. So that's the way it's going to go. That's our pseudocode. Pretty clear, 4 little steps. And the modulo operator, or modulo, or however it is that you might want to pronounce it, this actually makes this real easy. So like, we're going to do an if statement, and we're going to say if number modulo, this is the modulo little symbol here, this little thing. And it just means like, what is the remainder of the equation going to be? So if the remainder of the equation of the number modulo 15 is 0, then we know that it divides evenly into that number. and we're going to return fizz buzz. So this is just kind of like a little shorthand. I could have written this like if number modulo 5 equal 0 and number modulo 3 equal 0, then return fizz buzz. That works as well. But by doing it by 15, it's just mathematically that it works, and it just means that you can do it in less lines, which is great, because who doesn't want to write less lines? That's pretty much always the name of the game. Well, no, actually not always. Sometimes like people can chase efficiencies, like shorter code, shorter, but then they can chase it to a point where like it's too short and you can't actually understand what's going on. Like I bet you could go online and you could find solutions, like single line solutions to fizz buzz, and I reckon that they will be awful. I don't think you'd be able to understand what they were saying, because yeah, there is such a thing as too efficient. So here we've got if the number modulo 15 return 0 fizz buzz, that's great. And then we've got the fizz, the buzz, and then the final thing we need to do is else return the number. So this is the way that the fizz buzz works, just the classic fizz buzz. It always looks a little something like this. Like I said, there's probably fancier ways of doing it, but this is the way that I would go about it, because it's pretty clean. You can sort of understand what's going on here pretty easily. But if I run this now, everything's still going to fail, because we haven't actually written the super fizz buzz function. Yeah, should return an array. It should, but it doesn't. So let's have a look at what these tests are up to. This is the one that's failing first. It expects super fizz buzz to return an array, and it doesn't, so it's failing. And then the next thing it's going to do is, if you give it an empty array, it should return an empty array. Then when you give it a 1, it should return a 1. And then there's like a whole lot of tests here basically to see whether it's working correctly. So I feel like we kind of like, this was in the readme obviously, but maybe we didn't actually take enough time to look at it. So let's like jump back to the readme and we can really make sure we understand exactly what it is that we want this fizz buzz function to do. So it's here. It's in here. Cool. Alright, so we understand what fizz buzz does, right? Like let's say if I passed in a 1, it would return a 1. If I passed in a 2, it would return a 3. If I pass in a 2, it will return a 2. But if I pass in a 3, it's going to return fizz, because 3 is a multiple of 3. Or if I pass in a 5, it's going to return me buzz, because it is a multiple of 5. If I pass in a 15, it's going to return me fizz buzz, because it's a multiple of 15. And on and on and on for all of the numbers that could possibly exist. So that's what fizz buzz does. But what the super fizz buzz function is going to do is it's going to take an array of numbers. Basically, it's just doing exactly the same thing. Like, don't let this freak you out. It's doing exactly the same thing, but it's just doing it like for a whole lot of things simultaneously. So like, I could first run it with 1, then run it with 2, then run it with 3. I could run it with 1, then 2, then 3, or 1, then 2, then 5, or 1, then 2, then 15, or all of the numbers, whatever. But instead of having to run them individually, we're just going to pass in an array, and it's going to give us back an array that has done the fizz buzzing for us. So, like, I understand that if you look at this, it seems like really intimidating or really complicated, but like, the reality of the situation is it's just doing fizz buzz. Like, it's just doing the same thing. It's just running that function. This function that we just wrote, all it is going to do is run this function. There's nothing magical about what it's going to do. It's going to take an array, it's going to run this function on every item in the array, and then it's going to give back the array with the fizz buzzed values. So you can see examples here of what it's going to do. Now, the thing about this, right, is there are a few different ways you can do it. There's like kind of like what I was saying before, there's like the way that's like slightly more, it's like a little bit more long-winded but kind of easier to understand. That's always my preferred way of programming, is like, like not too big a deal if there's like lots of lines, but you can read it and you can understand what's going on. So like, let's write some pseudocode for this one. So first we're probably going to want to maybe make a new array to store our fizz buzzed values. Then we're going to fizz buzz, like the function, like run the function fizz buzz on all of the numbers inside the array. The array R. There's this one here, the array that's getting passed in, R. And then once we run fizz buzz on all of the numbers inside the array, like we're going to assign them to the new array. So our new array is just going to be our old array, same length, same content it is and everything as our old array, but with the new values inside it. Then we're going to return the new array. Cool. So let's do this. First, let's do the first step. It's always good when you're doing something step by step. Start with the first step. Make a new array to store our new fizzbuzz values. So we'll just say like new array is equal to a new array. Real simple, straightforward. We totally get what's going on here. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. We're going to want to do some sort of loop, right? Because we have an array. There's the array. We're going to want to do like something for every item in the array. I don't know exactly how much experience that you'll have with loops at this point. Maybe this will look familiar to you, maybe it will look really foreign to you. So we'll see. If it looks really foreign to you, then that's cool. Maybe just like do some research into for loops on your own time. This is the way it's going to look. We're going to be like for, make the iterator, I equals 0. Always good to start at 0. And then we're going to keep going. Well, I is less than array length. So like, and then we're going to increase I. So like, you know what's going on here? Maybe. Maybe you know what's going on here. If you don't, that's okay. So like here we've got I is equal to 0. So we're making an iterator starting in at 0. We're going to keep going as long as the iterator is smaller than the length of the array. And then every time we run the contents of our for loop, we're going to increase the iterator. So what actually happens here? We're going to want to get the value of the new fizzbuzz thing, right? So let's say it's called num. Num equals, and then we're going to want to use our fizzbuzz function. So fizzbuzz, and then we're going to pass in the array item that we're working on. So this is like going to be our, this array I is just a number on its own. So like, look at some examples here. On this test, they're running the super fizzbuzz function and they're passing an array with a 1, a 3, and a 5 inside it. So the first time this for loop runs, this is going to be a 1. Second time it runs, it's going to be a 3. Third time it runs, it's going to be a 5. So like, maybe I'll copy this line actually just so we can look at it. Let's say this is the one that we're running. Put it down here in a comment. So we're going to run this function, super fizzbuzz, with this array. Gets passed in here. This R represents this array with a 1, a 3, and a 5 in it. We make a new array, store all our fizzbuzz values, and then here we open up a for loop, and then we're making a new number variable that is the value of fizzbuzz array 1. So the first time the loop runs, it's going to be 1, then 3, then 5. And then we're just going to store that number inside our new array. Now, there are a few different ways you could do this. You could like add it to the array or do all of these kinds of things. So I think the way that you would do that, I don't actually really know how to write JavaScript. I can't remember any of the syntax. I think it would be something like that. New array, add number. Those students of you who have just been studying arrays probably have a better idea of this than me. I feel like maybe that's the way it happens. But there's an even faster way of doing this because we actually already know the position that we want it to be within the array because we've got an iterator right here. So instead of doing this, and instead of storing it as its own new variable, we can just do this. New array I equals fizzbuzz array I. So what's happening here is the first time it runs, I is going to be a 0, obviously. So we're accessing the 0th item in our new array, and then assigning it to the 0th item in the FizzBuzz array. And then over and over and over again. And it'll just do this until it has filled up our new array, using the iterator, filled up our new array with all of the contents of the old one. So that's these steps here. FizzBuzz all of the numbers inside the array, assign them to the new array. We're doing that all in this one line here. And then we want to return the new array. Obviously we want to do it outside the for loop, because if we did it inside the for loop, it would return straight away, and then would only run once. This for loop, it would just like run, hit that return statement, return out, and then it would break everything. So it's important that that return comes outside of the for loop. Get rid of all of that now. So I mean, I haven't tested this. I reckon this might work. Let's see. Let's have a look. Woohoo! that was great. Cool. Okay, so it's all passing. All of this is happening. You see all of these, you know, all of these numbers are getting fed in, passing all of the tests in the ways that it should. Woo. So this is working code. It could be better. So like, basically right now, we're like this, what we're doing here, looping over every item in an array and then returning a new array. This is JavaScript, like this is a pretty common thing to want to do in JavaScript actually, like take an array and then do something to every element in the array and then return an array again. That's like a common practice. And so there's actually a method that's like made for doing that called map. So we can get rid of all of this. All of that can go away. And then we can do it all in one line. If we just write return array.map. Map is a function that exists within all array objects. And then it looks like this. It's crazy. And you look at this. There's some pretty wacky stuff right here, but like really that's all there is to it. So map does exactly what that for loop that we wrote before does. It loops over every single item in the array, and this here, num, followed by this fat arrow, that's basically saying like, hey, what is the item in the array that we're working with? So num in this situation, like for every loop in the array, num is going to represent what the item in the array. So first it's going to be a 1, then a 3, then a 5. Basically just like accessing it with the iterator like we were before, but the map function just gives us the value. And then this fat arrow just means like, okay, pass that value into the FizzBuzz function. Then we can run it. You see it still works. So like, this is kind of like that thing I was talking about earlier where it's like, this is more efficient, you know, before it was like 4 lines or whatever, and now it's 1 line. So like, that's cool. That's really cool that it just is so short now. And there are some programmers who like really get off on that, you know, they really get off on having these like super sleek, sexy little functions. I kind of tend to prefer this though, honestly. Like I'm sure that there is a way that we could reduce this all down to 1 line, but I like seeing it. I like seeing everything, what is happening on all the lines. I actually preferred it the other way than like this. I preferred it like this, because you can see more clearly what is going on here, and you can follow all of the steps, and then if we needed to do anything else to them, you know, to the items in the array, like log them out, like this. It's really easy to just slip that line in there, and then you can see all the action happening. So that's kind of a personal preference thing, but like, and you'll definitely meet fancy hotshot coders who like want to get everything reduced down to like the smallest possible lines they can. But I have a tendency to think that it's better to actually like take a little bit more space and give yourself some kind of like room to think in like this. But that's just me. Cool. Okay, so that's FizzBuzz. Now we're going to move along and we're going to do like a little bit of stuff on this minesweeper exercise. So let's just like, hang on, I'll just do something in my little windows over here. Okay. So I cloned the repository down already, actually. If you go down here and you click on create a fork of the minesweeper repo, I actually did that already. So it's here in my downloads, minesweeper. So this is what you're going to be doing, like sorry, I did that a little bit quickly. I opened up the index.html file that's contained within the minesweeper repository. I could be doing this from the command line if you really wanted me to, but like, you know what it looks like. You understand at this point that like this and the command line are the same thing, really. So what we've got here is it's giving you some kind of instructions for how to go about this. So in the minesweeper thing, you can see it gives like a summary of the challenge, and the challenge in this situation is build minesweeper, which is exciting because like who doesn't love minesweeper? Let's have a look at it here. Let's play some minesweeper. Whoa, good start. Oh, what the hell? What is this? What's going on there? Oh man, what? This is beautiful. Did I lose? Oh, yeah, I did. Well, that was a really, really lovely little way to lose. Okay, so we have a little look here. This kind of gives you some instructions about like what the game should do once you've finished. Time box. See, this is going to take you 15 hours. Like that could really be true. Like it can be quite challenging to make this game. But we've actually done quite a lot of the work for you. That's the cool thing about this. So like once you clone the repository, follow all these instructions, like do the things that it says here. And then here, this is the point that we're going to kind of like try and do this bit and just see if we can get a little bit of it done. So if I open this and then this. So this is what it's going to look like when you're working on it. Basically, the workflow is going to be like this. You're going to get a message here in the index.html file of minesweeper. And then you're going to do something over in your minesweeper.js file. So minesweeper.js, maybe I will open this up so that we can have a little look at the directory contents. Blow this up a little bit. So go into my downloads folder. Oh wait. Yeah, cool. Minesweeper. Oops. I recently installed Minecraft again, so it, when I auto completed it, tried to tried to open up Minecraft. I do love Minecraft. Cool. Okay, so this is the contents of the Minesweeper directory. You've got your index.html file, which is this thing that I'm looking at here. And then you've got your Minesweeper CSS file, which is obviously like, you know, dictating the styling. And then this is the really important one, minesweeper.js. So that's this one that I've got open over here. You see this kind of like, my Visual Studio for some reason doesn't do like nice syntax highlighting on JavaScript documents, so it's all gray. So it's actually kind of like, it's hard to see what's going on here. But basically like, the way that this is going to work is you are going to uncomment things, so uncomment lines, and get access to these variables, and then write functions to do various things within the Minesweeper game. But the great part is, like, we've done a lot of the work for you, and a lot of the work that we've done for you is going on inside this lib directory. So you can look what's going on in there. We go into the lib directory. See, there's a lib.js file. Let's open that. What if I go open, wait, how do you do this? Explorer? Yeah. So here's this lib.js file. So look at all the stuff that's going on in here. There's a lot of code in here, and there's some complicated logic, like this stuff. If in this else is this ling in just okay. There's a lot going on here, like, and it's good that we're not asking you to do all of these things, because there's there's a lot going on here, like especially like the stuff to do with like figuring out the positioning of the mines and their coordinates and stuff within the array. That stuff can be quite complicated. So we're not asking you to do any of that. Instead, you just kind of follow these steps. So here it says, remember to define your board object. So we can see here on line 4 that there's a board variable, but that it's commented out. So if I get rid of the comments, and then I think the board is going to be an array. Now if I refresh my page, it says, woohoo, your board object needs to have a property named cells. Ah, so it's, I was wrong. It's not an object. I mean, sorry, it's not an array, it's an object. So object, and then it's got a property called cells. And maybe cells is going to be an array. Let's see. The board doesn't seem to have any cells in it. Try adding some elements to your array. Yeah, it is. That's great. So maybe, I don't know what kind of elements it wants. Maybe I'll just put some zeros in there. Let's see what it says now. Great. The number of cells in your object must be able to form a square. Same numbers on each side. Let's take this one. That looks like a good example to me. Oops. Cool. At least one of those cells is not an object. Ah, right. So I think it was actually going to be better with objects in there. So what if it's like this? Cells is an array of objects. Let's see how it feels about that. Oh man, really having trouble with the typing today. Need Mavis Beacon. Let's see how it feels about that. Great. I found a cell without a row property. An example of this object that passes the test is this. So what it's saying to me there is that it wants all of these to have row properties. So it's going to be an object. And really you're going to want to break them out like this. Like this. Is this how you're going to want them to look? I don't know. It's tough to say what the best way to format this would be. I guess you can kind of make your own decisions about that. Maybe like this. No, that doesn't look right at all. Oh well. I'm sure that you'll figure out the way you want it to look. But yeah, it would basically be like this. And then you have a row property in there, row 0. And then maybe the next one would probably have like a row 1 property. This one. Oops. Row 1. Yeah, how would you want that to look? Definitely you don't want it to look like this. This is ugly. Well, I mean, that's up to you. But probably don't make it look like this. I guess it's not that bad. Could be worse. Cool. Okay. Alright. Let's see if that passes this test. Yep. I found a cell without a column property. An example of an object that passes the test is this. So now it's going to also want me to have some... The cells are going to want to have... Anyway, regardless, like... you don't need to see me type this all out. The real purpose of this was to show you the solution to that FizzBuzz thing. I basically just wanted to show you this so you can get a sense of the way that the workflow is going to work. So you're going to go over here. You're going to see one of these errors. It's going to give you a thing that's like, hey, buddy, have you noticed that this is not happening? You go over here to your minesweeper.js file. You make some little changes. Whoops. You make some little changes. You jump back over here. You do a few more things. Back and forth, back and forth. And that's really like all I gotta say. Like, you're gonna just kind of follow these instructions, and you're gonna be pretty frustrated. There's gonna be parts where it works, and then parts where it doesn't. There might be periods of time where you want to read through those lib files that I was showing you earlier, so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on here behind the scenes. And that's basically it. I would encourage you to just spend as much time doing this as you can, and then once you've finished the sort of all the mandatory parts, like getting the game working, spend some time making it pretty, you know, making it cool, make it your own, customize it in some way. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've got to say. So this was a little bit of a brief session. But yeah, that's the reason was because like you all are now getting to a point where you don't need me to be explaining these things quite so much anymore. You've got a little bit more of a mastery of this now. Not mastery is the wrong word, but you've had exposure to quite a few of these different concepts. And crucially, this is the really important part, you understand that whenever there's something you don't get, so like, you know, earlier I used like that array map function, for example. Like, if you just left me alone right now, it would be like, hey, can you figure out how to make the array map function work? There's no way I could, right? Like, when I was preparing for this session, I didn't remember how the array map function worked. So I googled JavaScript, like array map. And then I was like, oh yes, excellent, this looks good. And then I looked at this, and then I saw their examples, and then I read what it is that it's doing, read the description, and look, they've even got lots of different examples of how to use array map here. So this is the thing, and it's one of the, like, you know, obviously we're all patient and lovely and charming people, the facilitators here at EDA, but one of the few things that does, like, kind of get under our skin a little bit sometimes is just like how long students will suffer away at a problem, suffer away at a problem before they do this thing I just did, Googling the solution, Googling what it is. Like, this is the solution, is just, when you're stuck on something, ask the goddamn internet about it, you know, like, that's really all you need to do. And like, that's one of the things that you're going to get really good at doing as a programmer, is not understanding how something works and then Googling and then reading the code, like documentation reference about it. So the next time you're about to send a message to me or send a message into the Foundations channel or something, asking some question like this, like, hey, how does the array map function work? Like, the first thing that you should try and do is Google and read the documentation. That is my number one tip. And then, obviously, like, if you, you know, can't make sense of the description, or you're still struggling or anything, like, then absolutely at that point reach out for help in all the ways that you need to. But yeah, I really would stress again that whenever you cannot figure something out, like, ask yourself the question, have I asked the internet about this? Because the internet definitely knows the answer. And that is it. So, congratulations on reaching the end of these Foundations workshop videos. I really enjoyed making them. I hope that they were useful for you. And now go on and enjoy the rest of the curriculum material for this sprint. And I will talk to you again some other time. Farewell.